Did you know that Christianity is the only religion which calls its message the good news? See, all other religions in the world call its tenets maybe a law, a way, or philosophy, or something like that. But Christianity makes a qualitative claim that it is good. Not just that it is good, it is the good news. Now, what is so good about that good news compared to the philosophies or ideology for other religious beliefs? Why is only Christianity's message called the good news? Now, this is a question I had been pondering for almost 12 years in my life. And I cannot summarize everything I learned in the next 20 minutes or so. So I am going to refer you to a resource which I hope you will find very, very helpful. It will be complementary or supplementary to my sermon. It is called the Mosaic Course, and I am recommending that for 3 different reasons. First, it was developed by me. And the second, it was produced here at Lake Avenue Church. And number 3, it is free. So I am not selling you anything, okay? Let's stand for the reading of the word. Have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, although he existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a bond servant, and being made in the likeness of men. Being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. This is the word of the Lord. You may be seated. Have you ever wondered what would have been the most difficult thing for God to do? Or let me put it another way. If you become God one day, what do you think will be the most difficult thing for you to do? Do you wonder about this kind of things, or it's just me? I keep thinking about this kind of stuff. You know, last week we had the privilege to visit JPL by our JPL family here at Lake. Gave us a VIP tour to see the Mars rover, which is about to be, going to Mars, I guess, right? So, that when we were going through this JPL and all those displays, and they showed us a 3D movie about the universe, and it made me wonder about the beauty and the majesty of the universe, the spectacular nature of the solar systems and the galaxies. And I'm thinking, man, wow, how did God make all this? Then I thought, well, if I am God, it might be very easy for me to make all this, right? I think it's like making an omelet in the morning or something. That's the only thing I make, that's the only thing I can cook. It is like, can you picture God getting up in the morning and, okay, let me make the universe today, right? He take an egg and pop it, and then he put some planets here and some stars here and some scrambles, some black holes all around, and voila, the universe comes, right? It's just as easy as it is. And our friends here at JPL are trying to figure out this omelet God made in the morning, whereas God is up cooking lasagna for lunch, right? So he is so powerful. God can do anything. But I believe in my theory, I believe, the most difficult thing God has ever done is not creation, but incarnation. You know, incarnation? Incarnation is the process in which God became a human being. And in theological language, we call it the process of kenosis. God emptying himself. God letting go of himself. Taking the form of a servant. Being in the likeness of man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even the death on a cross. The infinite God becoming a finite being. Now that is something goes way beyond our rational comprehension. And that is a big difference between Christian God and the gods of all other religions. Because the idea of incarnation is very unique to Christianity. If you say to a Jew or a Muslim that God became a human being, that is the worst kind of blasphemy. Because God cannot become a material, finite being. Buddhism doesn't have a concept of God at all. You know, it doesn't have a developed concept of God. Hinduism probably might be the one closest that could understand this concept. They have this idea of avatar. How many of you heard the word avatar? I know. It's a James Cameron movie, right? But did you know that it is a Sanskrit word, comes from India? It is actually coming from the theological vocabulary of Hinduism, which really means the descent of God. God coming down into the material world. That is what the word avatar really means, a descent of God. But the difference though, it is only a manifestation of God. God shows up as a human being or other beings. But it doesn't require the emptying of God. It doesn't require the kenosis of God. God doesn't empty himself. Now this incarnation or the emptying of God, that is what makes Christianity stands apart from all other religion. You know, when people say that, you know, Christianity is just another religion, you know, it makes me laugh because it only shows the blatant stupidity of that person. That only shows that, you know, I don't mind people saying that Christianity doesn't make sense, Christianity is irrelevant. That's okay. Everybody is entitled to your opinion. But if you say Christianity is just like another religion, that only means that you don't know anything about any religion. Because Christianity is the opposite of all religions. Okay, let me prove this to you in a language we will all understand, particularly in Los Angeles, okay? How many of you have watched this TV show called The Apprentice? I have a picture. So it is a reality show about a boss in his boardroom, right? And then he sends out his minions into the world or into the field, mostly to New York City. And then all they have to do is they have to accomplish a task. They have to fulfill a goal. And then after that, they will all come back to the boardroom, right? And if they accomplish the task, they have been successful at the task, then they will be rewarded, right? And if they did not do a good job, they will be fired, of course. They will be fired, right? Now, it is more or less like religion. Don't you think so? Our concept of religion is shaped like this. It is one of the reasons it deeply resonates with the psychological cord, right? Our understanding of God is this mighty being sitting in a boardroom, in a throne. He is the big boss. And we are the little minions running around the world. He has sent us to this world so that we can do some task. We can run his errands. We can do his chores. And then we do all this. And finally, when we die, we all go to the boardroom where the big boss is going to judge what we did. And if we did a good job, we will be rewarded. And if we didn't do a good job, we will go to the other place where we will be literally fired, right? That is our understanding of religion. Now there is another TV show called The Undercover Boss. This show also has a boss. This show also has a boardroom. But there is a dramatic twist in the way the plot is unfolding in this show. In this show, the boss doesn't sit in the boardroom, but he empties himself. He takes the form of one of the employees in his organization, and he works with them. He faces the harsh realities of life with all his employees. And he becomes part of their story, and he becomes one of them. And in the end, there is again, they are brought back to the boardroom, just like the show Apprentice. But big difference in the way people react, in the way boss reacts. And I still remember the first show they aired. It was about a company called Waste Management, Inc. And the CEO of that company, he went undercover as a blue-collar employee in his organization. And nobody could recognize him, but he was basically with them collecting garbage from the piles, and he was sorting out waste in a recycle facility, and that he was even cleaning porta potties in event sites and all these things. And all along, the people didn't recognize it is the big boss who is working with them, standing in the pile of rotten garbage. But then they are brought to the boardroom. There is this big reveal. Oh, this is our CEO. But even more shocking was the reaction of that big boss. He was crying like a little kid. Because he was not just a boss who sits on the throne and judges what people do or what they don't know, but he was one of them. He knew their story. He understood their pain. He faced the same realities they were facing. He listened to their stories in the lunchroom. So he had a completely different understanding about his company and his employees. Now, the God of religions is the God of Apprentice. The God of Christianity is the one who went undercover. We celebrated Christmas. Christmas is the day God decided to go undercover. That is the day God went undercover. Why would God do something like that? Why would God go undercover? Now, to talk about this, I have to talk about something politically incorrect. I have to use a word called sin. Sin, okay? You hardly hear it even in churches and even in seminaries. We don't talk about sin anymore. Because Christians are often accused in popular culture that we call everybody sinners, right? Honestly, that was my problem with Christians too before I became one. They called me a sinner. I was a perfect human being, in so many ways. Hey, I never committed a murder. I've never done highway robbery or anything like that. I've never done adultery. I was even brought up in a home which believed that we never drank, we never smoked. My parents believed that even watching movie was a sin. So that's a kind of it was not even a Christian home, by the way. I was brought up with, which placed high ethical values of life, in life. Anyway, the point is, then people call me sinner. I didn't understand until one preacher explained it to me. He redefined sin for me in a very interesting way. See, the real word of sin, the root word of sin, it comes from a Greek word, as it is represented in the New Testament, is hamartia. Now, hamartia literally means, as you can see, is missing the mark. That's all it means. Somebody missing the mark. It doesn't necessarily mean a morally inappropriate action. It's just that you didn't hit the target. Let me use an example. Say there is a father who is an engineer who runs a big engineering firm. It was in their family forever. He sends his son to university to do engineering so that he can come back and take over his family business. That makes sense, right? The son goes to university, and the son decides, I don't like engineering. I'm going to go to medicine. So he goes to medicine, and he became one of the famous cardiac surgeon, or some famous surgeon. He makes a lot of money. He gives it all away to charity. He volunteers for Doctors with Borders, and he becomes a very successful doctor instead of an engineer. We will say, attaboy, great job, great job. He followed his passion. But unfortunately, that is exactly what we call hamartia. Because he didn't play the intended role in the bigger narrative in which his story is written. I know it doesn't make any sense. Because what he did, there was nothing morally inappropriate about what he did, right? In a way, it is morally superior what he did. He became a doctor. He helped people. He volunteered. He gave everything away. But he still committed hamartia because he missed the mark in the bigger narrative. So it is not just about the morality of the action itself, but it is considered in a bigger narrative. So that's what really separates us from God. So when we talk about sins as, I don't kill, I don't steal, and all these things, when we say all this, we are talking about the word sin with a small s. But all the sins are produced by the sin, which is with a capital S, which is hamartia, which is a separation from God, which is missing the market. We don't have the relationship with God, all right. It doesn't matter how good you do in other realm. We are not performing the intended role in the story God is writing in this world, which is the root cause of all other sins with small s. Now, that's why, that famous Michelangelo painting, you must have seen the creation of Adam, right? And there is this yearning heart of God. God reaches out to man, and the man reaches out to God, and they are almost touching, but the hands are not touching. Now, that is the problem of the world today. The hands are not touching. That is exactly what hamartia, that is the mark that is being missed. So religions give us a list of chores to do. You do this, you do that, so that you can please God. And religions give us a list of ceremonies or rituals, and so that somehow we can please God and fill this gap. And nothing we have ever done has ever pleased God. Nothing we can do can fill that gap. So in Christianity, God says, I will do something. You have tried and failed, right? That's why people hate religion, because religion is about doing this, doing that. In the end, there is no satisfaction. It becomes a tiresome chore. That is why people hate religion. It's not because they hate God. I know this. I've done enough research in this field. People hate religion because it's all about doing this and doing that. And in the end, with no meaning in the end. There is no relationship. There is no effect. Nothing happens. That is why they hate religion. Then in Christianity, God says, you tried, right? Now let me do this. Only in Christianity God takes the initiative for salvation. God takes the initiative. But here is a big problem, though, for God to face. Because God cannot just go and embrace the sinful humanity. So we always say, if I'm God, I'll just forgive everybody, right? Just that's it. Why all this drama on the cross? Why Jesus Christ comes to this world? Why he empties himself and kills himself? All this spectacle is being created for salvation. Can God just forgive us all? That's a good question, right? It is simply because God is also a just judge. He cannot contradict or he cannot break the law he has himself set up for the universe to run in motion. That questions his integrity as a just judge, because he sets the law of morality of the cosmos, right? So on one side, he is the just judge. He has to punish hamartia. And on the other side, he is also a loving father. He has to love and embrace humanity. In theological language, we call it a divine dilemma. Now, all religions stumble at this point. No religion knows how to handle this crisis. So they continue to prescribe more medication, and there is no solution. But in Christianity, God empties himself, coming in the form of a man, coming in the form of humanity, and embraces this punishment. He embraces the wages of sin, which is death, on his body on the cross, and he lets humanity go free. Because on the cross of Christ, the wrath of God, as we sang today, or the punishment of sin is fulfilled. The requirement of the law is fulfilled, but also the love of God is manifested as well. Because without the cross of Christ, there cannot be salvation. It doesn't matter which religion you belong to. Without the cross of Christ, the justice of God and the mercy of God cannot meet. On the cross of Christ, the law of God and the love of God meets. That is why the cross is the ultimate good news Christianity gives to the world. That is the ultimate message of freedom Christianity gives. When religion tells you, do this, do not do this, do not do this, Jesus said, it is finished, it is done. It is done. See, Christianity is not a do religion. Christianity is not a don't religion. Christianity is a done religion. The cross is the end of religion, and it is the beginning of a relationship. See, it is a different paradigm. God is inviting. That's why evangelicals use this word. Have you entered into a personal relationship with Jesus? This is what Christianity can offer to you, a personal relationship with God. See, righteousness in Christianity is not about doing the right thing. It is about entering into a right relationship with God. Right? When my daughter does something, whether something which I like with something I don't like, her actions don't define our relationship. Our relationship is what defines her action. Nothing that she can do that will make me love her less. Because it is the relationship that defines all other action. That is the difference between Christianity and all other religions. All other religions are based on the idea of karma or the work, where God is going to have some moral scale where he judges your action based on whether it is good or bad. Then he gives you punishment, or he is going to send you to heaven or hell. But Christianity says it is not just about doing the right thing. It is about entering into a right relationship, and we are doing the right thing not because we are righteous, not because we want to be righteous, but because we are already righteous in Christ. So righteousness is important. Doing the right thing is important. We are not discrediting that. But we are not doing the right thing so that we can earn salvation. Salvation is not something that cannot be earned. It is given free. It is done. And we are doing the right thing because we are already righteous in Christ. And today, as I close, and I invite you into that relationship with Him. The word of the cross is a foolishness to those who are perishing. But unto us who are being saved, it is the power of God. See, I have nothing to preach to you today except the cross of Christ. And Paul said, we preach Christ crucified. That's all I can preach. That's all we have to preach. That's all we should be preaching in our churches, but it is so common to go to an evangelical churches nowadays and we will never hear the cross because it is not that pleasant message. But here we preach the Christ crucified. And the Son of Man who is on the cross will be lifted up at Lake Avenue Church because Him and Him alone, His cross alone is what that brings us salvation.